Howdy, friends. Glad you could join us. As I was a-riding one morning for pleasure, I spied a cowpuncher a-riding along. His hat was throwed back and his spurs was a-jingling. As he approached, he was singing this song. Whoopee-tie-yi-yo, get along, you little doggies. It's your misfortune and none of my own. Whoopee-tie-yi-yo, get along, you little doggies. You know that Wyoming will be your new home.
Welcome to You Know That Wyoming Will Be Your New Home, brought to you by the Folk Arts Program of the Wyoming Arts Council. I'm your host, Larry Peterson. In this program, we'll hear colas and polkas, music of Slavic and Tyrolean people who settled Wyoming.
Mariska pegla, 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 pegla. Oj, Mariska pegla, 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 pegla. Oj, Mariska pegla, 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 pegla. Oj, Mariska pegla, svaki dan I noć. Oj, Mariska dansa, 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 dansa. Oj, Mariska dansa, 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 dansa. Oj, Mariska dansa, 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 dansa. Oj, Mariska dansa, svaki dan I noć.
In Fremont County, between Riverton and Lander, is a blinking light, a curve in the road, in the town of Hudson, Wyoming, population 514. The landmarks here include Sviler's, the El Toro, and the Union Bar, where members of the Vinich family, Mike, Lyle, Babe, and Michelle, sing traditional Serbian songs.
Oj, Mariska joka, 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 joka. Oj, Mariska joka, 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 joka. Oj, Mariska joka, 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 joka. Oj, Mariska joka, svaki dan I noć. Oj, Mariska pijana, pijana, pijana. Oj, Mariska pijana, pijana, pijana. Oj, Mariska pijana, pijana, pijana. Oj, Mariska pijana, svaki dan I noć. Oj, Mariska pegla, 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 pegla. Oj, Mariska pegla, 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 pegla. Oj, Mariska pegla, 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 pegla. Oj, Mariska pegla, svaki dan I noć.
Boy, that's pretty energetic.
Gets going.
What's the translation? I mean, you have like a refrain that's repeated again and again with different words.
It's about a lady, isn't it? Mariska is Mary, actually. She irons and irons, and then she, dancing, then she sings and sings, then she sews and sews. It's just sort of a rhythmic thing about Mary, Lady Mary. But it makes a fine polka, and they can really do a good two-step polka and everything.
Mike Vinich was born and raised in Hudson. Producer Deborah Lamberton found him at the Union Bar, where he's been proprietor since 1972. Before that, he ran a grocery. Mike remembers a time during his early school years when there were families from 15 different nationalities in Hudson. In fact, coal mining in Wyoming attracted immigrants from throughout Eastern Europe, from Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Austria, as well as Yugoslavia. Like many who came to America, Mike and Lyle's father was lured to this country and eventually to Wyoming by the promise of prosperity.
He came to New York when they were building subways in the early, I think it was 1899 when he came over the first time. And he was studying to be a priest in Yugoslavia. And some friend of his says, let's go to America, John. He says, they're picking dollars from trees. He says, it's a great land of opportunity. So Dad didn't even say goodbye to his mother. They got a merchant marine ship and they both left. And he never went back to Yugoslavia to see his mother. And he always regretted that. But his hands were so soft when they were working on the subway. They were rolling boulders and whatnot. So he thought, I want to get away from here. The massive people, he just didn't like it at all because he was from the rural area. And the only means of transportation in them days was a boxcar. You know, the fellows got on a boxcar. And he got in between Laramie and Cheyenne, Wyoming. And he said he saw more beef cattle than people. And he said, I want to live here. I might get a beefsteak someday. And he ended up in the coal mines of Wyoming.
Oj, czobanie, med nas usta, gonista dođe šuma gusta. Oj čobane, medna su ti usta, onista dođe šuma gusta. Kiša pada, što čudi ko sada, nas dvojica jedna kavanica. Kiša pada, što čudi ko sada, nas dvojica jedna kavanica. Oj čobane.
That's a shepherd's song. It's a song about two lovers out there herding sheep, and the big rainstorm came. They only had one raincoat, and they didn't know what to do, how to protect each other. And it kind of made a jovial thing out of it, and sort of a romantic thing out of it, too. So I think they used the raincoat. I don't know.
I want to know, babe, if you can speak Serbian enough to converse.
No, well, kako ti?
How are you?
You could say, how are you? No, but I can understand some words, but not, I can kind of know what they're saying a little bit, but not a whole lot. I kind of get translations from Dad and Lyle.
So what is it that gets you involved in making the music as a family?
I just think it's beautiful. It brings me back to my heritage, and just I'd like to learn more. I have some tapes of Serbian that I'm trying to pick up more of the language, but it's so hard if you're not right speaking it all the time, and I just want that tradition to go on, listening and speaking.
Well, you said it brought you back to the heritage. Why is that important?
Well, I just think it should be important to everyone where they're from, and it just, so many memories to me come from Hudson of when we used to get together when we were little kids. I remember all the old-timers singing, and it's something I think I'd like my children to know, these kind of things, to keep it going.
And you've got two, right?
Uh-huh. Two little girls. One can dance now to all of it, but someday maybe she'll learn to sing these songs too.
Razbila se čaša, iz koje smo vino pili, otkrila se ljubav naša koju smo tajili. Otkrila se ljubav naša koju smo tajili. Ruku mi ne steži, srce mi ne daži draga, bez istinu reći meni što ti srce želi. Već istinu reci meni što ti srce želi. Razbila se čaša iz koje smo vino pili, otkrila se ljubav naša koju smo tajili. Otkrila se ljubav naša koju smo tajili.
That song indicates the Razbila se čaša means the wine glass is broken. They're very much in love, and one evening the wine glass broke, and that was their signal that their love has faded away, forever gone. That's about the gist of the whole song.
Do you decide to learn new songs? I mean, how do you develop your repertoire?
These are mostly older songs that we've learned from our parents, but they have a lot of new songs too. Now we're mostly singing the old songs because that's what we learned, but they have a lot of new songs, and I've heard a lot of them. There's some nice songs too, but we haven't learned them yet. We're trying to get into this more, so.
Tell them about your lodge and where you traveled.
Oh yeah, well, we started a SNF Lodge, that's Serb National Federation Lodge here in Hudson, and And they have activities going all over, like the Serbian golf tournaments and basketball tournaments. In fact, I took my boy to Milwaukee this spring to play in the Serbian basketball tournament, and they have big doings over there. They have tambourines, orchestras, and I'll bet there's about 5,000 Serbs there. A lot of these people came from the old country too, you know, and they speak it, and their kids still speak it, you know. But
they're mainly in the industrial part of this country,
Right,
aren't they?
right.
Where they can find easy jobs. I mean, jobs are more available for them. And I know when I was back in Cleveland, Ohio, I believe it was 1963, to a VFW National Convention, I ran into a lot of people from, they called themselves deportees. They were deported, some of them were, because they didn't get along with some of the governments, so the communistic government in Yugoslavia. And they centered in the Cleveland area. And I had quite an interesting thing. I was in the park, and I heard these men talking the language my mother taught me, and I interrupted, and I says, where are you gentlemen from? And they asked me, well, where are you from? And I said, Wyoming. They didn't know where Wyoming was. And he said, are you a Catholic or are you a Protestant? I says, well, let me tell you, my mother was a Catholic, my father was a Protestant. You want to tear me in half now? I'm half and half. Well, it's the same thing as a Protestant or Orthodox. And they says, well, since you're half and half, you can join us. And I had a real good time. I went to their various clubs, and they had their own nationality songs. There were German pubs, there were Slovenian pubs, there were Italian pubs, and they all had accordions, and they had their own songs, which I found very familiar there as to Old Hudson years ago.
In the twilight glow I see you, blue eyes crying in the rain. When we kissed goodbye and parted, I knew we'd never meet again.
Now you might be wondering what this song has to do with Serbian music. Well, actually, it's found in the Serbian National Federation Songbook, and many scholars believe that it is a traditional Serbian melody brought to America after World War II. Mike and Lyle Vinich and Mike's daughters Babe and Michelle are often asked to sing this version with both English and Serbian words at local funerals.
I'll remember blue eyes crying in the rain. Suzeliu plave oči, plave oči, nevjerna. Varala si da me ljubiš, sad već si osamljena. Ljubim tebe sve od srca, makar što si varala. Nikad neću zaboraviti plave oči ljubim ja. In the twilight glow I see you, blue eyes crying in the rain.
Okay, well, for 7 years, we had a band here. My brother Michael and my sister Michelle and I and my Uncle Lyle and my dad would always join in and sing the Serbian songs in between. Whenever we sang, we'd do all the other songs for people, the country and the everything for them, but everyone always wanted to hear the Serbian songs. It just wasn't a night unless we got to get up and sing those.
You know, did the residents of Hudson request that, or was it just everybody?
Just really anyone. If they came in and heard it once, they were back to hear it again. It seemed to be just anyone who had heard the Serbian songs always wanted to hear them again.
What do you think it is about the Serbian songs that attracts people to it?
Well, I think it's the feeling when we sing it. They can tell by our smiles and what we're doing when we're singing it, pick up on it, and it just, everyone enjoys it. It's just that kind of music. When it's very happy, it shows through the music, and when it's very sad, that shows through too. And I think it's just, even though they're not Serbian, they become Serbian for a little time.
Anybody who listens to the music can become Serbian.
Right. They even had some Irish Serbians in yesterday.
Veselce se mlađani, pokraj čaše vina, jer taj život ne traje 1000 godina. Pimo ga, sve do dana beloga. Pimo ga, sve do dana beloga. Veselite se mlađani, pokraj čaše vina, jer taj život ne traje 1000 godina. Pimo ga, sve do dana beloga. Pimo ga, sve do dana beloga.
If you leave Hudson and drive for about 4 hours south, you come to the city of Rock Springs in Sweetwater County. Here, too, East and Central Europeans settled to work the coal mines. The musical influences of these people can be heard today in the polkas of cousins Dick and Carl Como and the Polka Knights. For Carl, there's one thing that makes a good polka.
It's definitely the rhythm factor. And basically the Italian rhythm and the Slavish type rhythm would really be hard to distinguish if you didn't play polkas. And you probably wouldn't realize the one from the other unless you did. But I think the Slavish has a little sharper upbeat on its rhythm. I don't know why, maybe it's my imagination, but that's to me the distinguishing factor between the two.
Like Carl says, it's hard to distinguish between the two, but one of the most famous polkas ever written is an Italian polka, and it's called the Tick-Tock Polka, but it was put with a Slovenian touch to it.
It looks so complicated.
I think that's what a lot of people think why the accordion probably is hard to play, is because they look at all those buttons and they say, wow, how do you know which one to push and this and that, and they can't comprehend,
pushing the buttons because there's so many of them, 120 of them.
Can you give me a quick example of a line or two where you're changing things so that as you play I can hear the changes?
Change the tone of it?
Change the tone.
Yeah, like at top of the hill we did when you ended it.
If this sounds different to you than Richard's accordion, it's because what you're hearing is a diatonic accordion, or as most players know it, a button box. Like a harmonica, each button produces two different notes as the air goes in and out. It's played by Frank Parenta, a member of the Polka Knights, and this tune is one that often opened the dances at the Slavinsky Dome in Rock Springs. It's called Vienna Forever.
When I was small, I lived 7 miles from here, see. There were not only Slovenian Croatians in Reliance, there were Italians and the Greeks and that. They all made wine, and like I say, and then in Sunday afternoons, that's where that wine went. It just went, people would come to visit, and you'd spend all afternoon. I can remember a lot of times you'd go till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. They'd start right after lunch. And they always had somebody bring a button box out, or maybe two. Then they'd sing, and there'd be food, and they'd eat, and then play some more and sing some more until time to go home.
For over the last half-century, there have been dances at the Slavinsky Dome. Until World War II, they were held every 2 weeks as the miners got their paychecks. With the many nationalities living in the Rock Springs area, celebrations and festivities were a regular occurrence. Lily May Hanovich immigrated from Yugoslavia and settled in Rock Springs with her husband.
He was working a coal mine for Union Pacific, like everybody else around here. It was really nice. Everybody was happy. We celebrate Labor Day. We used to have an Old-Timers Day. We have a parade, and we sing and we dance by the Old-Timers building and serve the food. It was a really nice and happy time.
There's one polka that's so well liked and so often requested that it's now considered the Rock Springs national anthem. It's called The Silk Umbrella, and is played here by Dick and Carl Como with Frank Parenta.
where do you see you all in 5 years? Where are you going to be?
I really don't know. Can't predict the future.
Going to be playing polka music?
I'll be playing music. There'll be polkas in there too. You always have to retain at least a few polkas for your own spirit, I think.
You've been listening to a program of Serbian and Tyrolean music from Hudson and Rock Springs, Wyoming. One program in the series, You Know That Wyoming Will Be Your New Home, brought to you by the Folk Arts Program of the Wyoming Council on the Arts. This program was recorded, written, and produced by Deborah Jane Lamberton. Dennis Coelho is project folklorist and executive producer for the series. Our thanks to all the musicians who participated in this program, Dick and Carl Como and the Polka Knights, to Frank Parenta, and the Vinich family. Thanks also to Susan Everett of the YWCA of Sweetwater County and to the Dovich and Limich families, to the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress, and to Luan and Associates. Mix engineer for this program is Dirk Pfannenstiel at Multivision Studios in Denver. I'm your host, Larry Peterson. Production of this program was made possible in part with a grant from the Folk Arts Program of the National Endowment for the Arts.